So again, my name is Elizabeth Brown, and I'm going to be talking about constructs of time, manifestations of art, architecture, and attitudes, and also about my experience studying abroad on the London and Florence program. At Ripon College, I am an English major and a studio art minor, and when I entered college, I intended to go on this program because it matches very well with both areas of study, and London and Florence are also major headquarters for literature and art. Without a doubt, it was an incredible learning experience, and I can come back now and say that I understand much better both aspects of those areas of study and those fields of work. Additionally, it developed my perspective that art is a dialogue between times, and the following images are intended to represent some of that transference of time visible in the artwork. The first half of the program was in London, and when I first arrived, I can say that everything was new, everything was exciting, and everything was art. And what I mean by everything was art is that when everything from the door handles to the signs to the culture is different from what you know, it becomes an art form. Everything becomes a fascinating nuance to interact with. And when the road signs weren't where I expected them, they became an art form as well. This image, this image is of a road sign that's on the side of the building, which exists in the United States, but at the time I was unfamiliar with it and just had to learn how I was going to interact with that as well. As evidence of the street sign, the new environment demanded that I interact with it differently, and it also prompted me to wonder how much time had actually changed, how much architecture environment affected cultural attitudes now. These images are taken from the Foreign and Commonwealth building in the highly historic area of London. However, historic London is not in a museum. It is an integral part of current day culture and history. For this particular illustration, it's handy to know that boats, countries, theories, and many other concepts are often feminized. In this instance, and on this building, females are used to symbolize different continents. If you're female, this can be flattering that your gender can encompass such a comprehensive message. Or maybe it's a little demoralizing that you might be nothing more than an icon. The paradox of these images and those like them is that this building was built between 1861 and 1868, a time in which females wouldn't have actually had that much power with the state. But these images seem to suggest that they did, or do. Today, the paradox is still a part of the building, regardless of whether it illustrates current attitudes. Another interaction with art is that all the buildings in London are really close to each other, and there is art right on top of other art. This is a picture of the London Wall, which has been preserved for hundreds of years. As you can see, it is wedged right in between modern skyscrapers, and old is matched up right against new. Witnessing how physically integrated and interactive the new and old were made me wonder how much each architectural style influenced each other. This transference of architectural time leads to an architectural dialogue and push and pull relationship between change and stagnation. This is a theater performance I attended while in London, and it's the Sea Plays by Eugene O'Neill. The theater employed no longer used tunnels from the tube or the subway system, which had been transformed into a stage. This environment enhanced the actor's performance and served as its own form of stage art. The repurposing of an old setting for a new function creates this dialogue between new and old architecture. Moving onward from London, the second half of the program was in Italy, and this integration of old architecture became even more pronounced. Most everything in Europe is old, and people will tell you this consistently. However, when you get to Italy, you'll find that everything is ancient. And in moving there, I started to wonder how much culture had actually changed. This picture comes from a class trip to Venice, and the houses and form of transportation are still the same today as they were hundreds of years ago. Like the Londoners, the Italians are really invested in preserving their architecture and art and are willing to save that at most cost. However, in maintaining the history of a culture, there must be some sacrifice of change. This works both ways, and in order to make change, you have to sacrifice some of the historical culture. Changing times also serve to maintain history, but add something to it. This picture is taken from in front of the Pantheon, which is another class trip we took to Rome. As you can see, it is a popular tourist attraction, but what is significant to this discussion of history is this little guy. He is dressed up like a gladiator and probably hoping that tourists will want to take their picture with him, probably slip him a euro or two, or maybe just their whole purse. But what he's actually doing is cashing in on the historical associations of being a gladiator. But is he actually changing our perception of gladiators and the iconography we associate with them? Is he cheapening them or keeping them alive? Either way, I would argue that he is changing something. The locations I visited in Europe, as with any established yet developing city, illustrate an interesting dialogue between changing and maintaining what's already there. This leads me to overlapping time. By the end of the trip, I had come to view time as a manifestation of art, and art as an illustration of time. Without art, we can't personally interact with it, as me and my flatmates are doing in this picture. And as an art enthusiast, I'm a proponent of maintaining architecture. However, this trip taught me that in preserving art, you also preserve some of the attitudes, and you may have to sacrifice change as a result. Art demands that you consider how closely you want to be a part of the past, and also how much past you want to take into the future.